What's up guys, Andre here, and today I'd like to take a look at building static sites with Gridsome and Vue. If you're familiar with Gatsby for React, Gridsome takes heavy inspiration from the Gatsby project. What separates Gridsome from other static site generators is its GraphQL data layer, which pulls information from any data source, whether it's an external API, a database, or a file system. All your pages and components can access this data source, which then eventually gets converted to static files. So check out this diagram here in the How It Works section if you want a diagram of what I just explained. Here are our data sources, which can be CMSs, local files, or APIs, and you can do that with just like say standard Axios, or you can use plugins, which we'll take a look at later in this video. This gets pulled into a GraphQL data layer, which is available in our app here, and then eventually gets generated to static HTML. So this will become more clear as I go through examples in this video. Okay, so let's get started. And let's see what we need here. We need to install the Gridsome CLI tool, which I already have. Just do this. And then we can start off by doing Gridsome create. And I'm going to do this. And let's do this. And I'm going to call it Gridsome example. Okay, that's done. Let's go into it. And let's run Gridsome develop. Actually, let me open up in my editor first. And now I'll run Gridsome develop. Okay, so here's the boilerplate. We have a home page, an about page, and that's basically it. And two external links and an image. Okay, so let's take a look at the default file structure here. So we have some configuration, which we'll take a look at when we install some plugins. And we have a server here, which we'll also take a look at to load external data through an API. We have this source folder, and this should feel very familiar if you use Nuxt or even just Vue. So you have a components folder where all your reusable components go. You have a layouts page, which pages can extend from, and we have a default layout here. And here's the default one, which has these links. And we have our pages here. Again, we have two, index and about. And we also have this meta info, which changes the title when you go to this page. So about us is about us, and index is hello world, I think. Yeah, hello world. So hello world, and this should be about us. Cool. The Gridsome config also has a site name for your entire site, which you can change if you want. Okay, so as you expect, as we make a new page, let me just duplicate the about one, say team, and we'll do team here. Sorry, team here. And this should add a new route or a new page for team. And there it is. And we can add it to our default layout if you want. And we use glink to add router links. So if you used Vue router, it's router link. If you used Nuxt, it's Nuxt link. And in Gridsome, it's glink. So this is team. Okay, so there you go. Cool. Okay, now let's take a look at layouts. We have this default layout, but you can have multiple layouts. So I'm going to make a new one here because we're going to make use of another one later on when we do the blog. So I'm going to call this blog. And let's leave everything here. We'll change it later on when we need it. But just to show you how to extend this new layout, I'm going to add an extra link here just to show you it working. And for the team page, I want this new layout. So when I go to team, it should have 2 links because it's extending from this layout. So let's go to team. And instead of layout, we can make use of this new one that we created. So we have to import that. Let's import it. Import, let's call it blog layout from, and I'm going to get it from here. This is source and components. Sorry, not components, layouts. Blog. And let's add a components key. Let's add blog layout in there. And now we should be able to use it. So blog layout. And add a comma. And this should work. So there you go. Team has, you can see it has 2 because we're extending from that layout. So cool. So yeah, we'll make use of this later on. Actually, let me show you global layouts. So if you're reusing this across several pages, then you probably don't want to do this for every page. So there's a way to define it globally, which is in here, main.js. You can actually see the default layout is being called globally, being used globally. So let me just do this. Blog layout. This is blog. And then we can add a new one for blog layout. Blog layout. And now it is global. Let's go back to team. Let's remove this. And let's remove this. And that should still work. And it does. Cool. Okay, so with that knowledge, we can make a simple blog. So let's go back here and let's just add a new folder here. So I'm going to call it blog HTML because later on you want to use Markdown. So blog HTML. And let's just add a new file here called blog post 1.view. And I should have just copied something from here. Let me just grab this. So this is using the default layout and put whatever you want here. Blog post 1. And we can change this. Blog post 1. And now if we go to blog HTML, so this is going to be converted to kebab case or dash case. So blog dash HTML, blog post 1, same with this. So blog HTML, blog post 1. Sorry, did I name it ONE? Yeah, I did. Okay, there you go. You can also add images if you like. Let me just put in an image here. Okay, so I just pasted this random image in the same folder as blog. So let's go ahead and add that. So let's put it right here. Just do image dot slash random dot jpeg blog image. That should work. There it is. You can change the styling so it doesn't span across this too far. And obviously you can make more, which I'll do here. Okay, so I added 2 more, and obviously you can go to them. Okay, but now I want a blog role in the main page here, so we can do that as well. So back to our index page. We can add, we'll just add it in an unordered list. And we can do, oh sorry, I should be using glink. So glink to equals slash blog HTML slash blog post 1, say blog post 1. We can do the same for 2 and 3. Okay, and this should successfully link to those blog posts. And they do. Cool. Okay. Now, this is perfectly fine if you want to do things manually, but I want to take a look at a few more things. So, number one, I want to be able to do this in Markdown, and we can take a look at some plugins to accomplish that. And more importantly, I want to take a look at the central data store with GraphQL. So if you don't know much about GraphQL, I have an entire series on it. But even if you don't watch that, you can follow along here and it will be pretty straightforward in my opinion. So if you look at our development here, a development server, you'll see you can explore GraphQL data at this URL. So let's hit that. And we have this GraphQL playground. And it already has all my queries from before. So don't look at this. Let's start from scratch. So like I said, you have access to all of your data in this GraphQL central store. So for example, if I do a query and I just want the metadata, let's do that. And then I can query the site name and the site URL. And this should work. And there it is. And this corresponds to this config. So if I change this, the GraphQL will change. So let me show you one more query just so you can have a better understanding. So another query allows you to grab all the pages. So if you go to all page, and we can grab the information that we want. So say for example, the ID, the slug, the type, and the path. So if we do that, there's all the pages. So we just added those blog posts and we have the team index and the about. Cool. So what I want to do is extend our blog to be able to use Markdown. And I also want that to be dynamic. By dynamic, I mean I want to be able to add just a Markdown file and I want the blog role to automatically detect that. So where's our blog role here? Automatically detect it and add it here without having to manually do it. So we can do that by adding a few plugins, and one of them is, just go to the website. One of them is the source file system, which allows you to read files on your file system, obviously. And that's going to be able to read our Markdown files. So this will populate our GraphQL store with the Markdown files in our system. And then we need this one too, so we can transform Markdown into HTML. So to install them, we can just do this. So I'm just going to do this. Let me just stop this. And I also want Gridsome, transformer, remark. Okay. Okay, that's done. Let's take a look at how to use it. Actually, if you go in here, I think there's an example of how to use both of them together. Okay, so let's grab this. Everything here. Let's go into our config. And let's replace this. Actually, let's re-add the site name Gridsome after, because it's not there anymore. So let me re-add that. Okay. So we don't need this because it's empty. And this is okay as default, but what's important to us is this. I think I need this remark as empty, so let's just leave it here. So the path is going to be where our Markdown files for our blog lives. So we have to create this blog folder in the root directory and stick all our Markdown files in there. And we also have to define a new GraphQL type called post, which we will do, and we have to add a template for it in our template folder over here. So let's go ahead and do those things. Let's add a blog folder first here. So I'm going to add a new folder. Let's call it blog. And let's put some Markdown in here. It's a new file. And I'm going to name it the same thing as the other ones, but now Markdown, blog post 1.md. And I'm going to paste in some Markdown, which has different Markdown elements in here. So to start off, we need this YAML front matter, which allows us to set certain variables for this specific blog post. Right now, I only have title, but you can add other things like an excerpt or a summary, whatever you want to call it. You can also add images in here, like the cover image, but we can just stick with title to keep it simple. And everything else in here is just Markdown, just to see if it renders correctly, or if it renders the correct HTML at least. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to save the config as well. And I'm just going to add 2 more, just so we have a few to work with. Okay, so now that we have this in our blog folder and the config setup, this should now appear in our GraphQL store. So if I refresh this, actually I have to restart my server, which I stopped. And now if I refresh this, and if you look in the docs section, you'll see a new one for all posts, which allows us to grab all the posts in our file system. So let's go ahead and do that. And do all post. Sorry, bear with me. My computer is really slow right now. I just want to get this part done, and I'll cut it and try to make it faster. So all post, and then we have to do edges and nodes. So edges is the array of data coming back, and the node is each item in the array. So this, in this case, it'll be each post. So this will be a post title, and that title is coming from that front matter YAML we have. And we can do other things like path and content. So content will be the rendered HTML. Let's also do the path. Okay, so let's try this. Okay, so there we go. This is information for all our posts in our blog folder. So we have 3, 1, 3. Right now it's in descending order by date, I think. 2. So yeah, you can see we have all 3 there. Cool. Okay, now let me show you how to get one post. So I'm going to leave this here, and I'll just do one post up here. So query, and we want one post. So there is a query for just one post, and the parameter it takes is the path, and that path is just the /blog and this, the name, so blog post 1. Okay, and we can retrieve whatever we want, so title and content. Okay, so there it is. So now back to our code. We want to be able to render this GraphQL type. So we have to make a template, like I said earlier. So there's a templates folder here. Let's make a new one for post. So it has to be the same name as the type name. So in our case, it's post. Sorry guys, this GraphQL Explorer, GraphQL Playground, the one in the browser at least, is really slowing down my computer. So what I did was take a screenshot of this. I have this copied, and we'll just go back to this whenever I need it. So I'm going to close this for now because I can't work like this. And now my computer is magically faster. Okay, so back here, and let me just put that in here because we're going to need that. Let's leave it there for now. And I have a screenshot just in case we need to reference that right here. Okay, so we need a template. And this is going to extend our blog layout like we did earlier. Let's put a div in here. And I'm going to use the vhtml directive and just do page.post.content. So this page.post is going to be available to us when we make a GraphQL query. So this content is just going to be this stuff returning. So it's just HTML. So yeah, this is just going to be, in here is just going to be that rendered HTML like you see in here, right here. And I'll show you how to do the GraphQL query in a second. Let me just self-close that. And for the script, let me just, we don't have to do this, but let's just make it consistent with everything else. Let's do, just change the title. And title is going to be this page title. So the title in the browser here is going to be the title of the blog post. And now to get that information from our GraphQL query, so this is the query, and we want this information in our post view component here, we can make use of something called a page query. So usually in view components, you have template, script, and style. We have a new one called page query. And here we can make our query. So whatever I have in here, we can grab this. So remember, this returns one post. And we just have to make a few changes here. For the most part, it's the same, which we don't have to name it, but let's name it. And we have to give it a path variable. And it's a string and it's required. And now post is the variable I want available in this component. So we're using it here and we're using it. Oh, that's the only place we're using it. And post path. And instead of hard coding it, we're going to pass it in. And that's going to come from the URL. And we want the title and the content. Sorry, this is post. Okay. So now if I hit the URL, so in our case, it's just blog post 1. This should be rendered out with the appropriate content. So it's going to have our blog layout, and then it's just going to render out this markdown in HTML. And we should have that set up in our plugins. Okay, so let's hit it manually. Blog post 1. And there we go. You can see the markdown rendering correctly. And you can see there's two teams here. So there are, it's extending from the correct layout. And the same works for 2 and 3. 2, 3. Okay. So this is rendering correctly, but there's no styles. And it doesn't want to load. Yeah, it's still a bit buggy. So if it doesn't want to load on you, just restart the server. Okay, so I just want some styles here. So I did this in my Nuxt video, and I'm just going to use a library that has CSS for GitHub flavored Markdown. And we just have to, we can use npm install, but the CDN is much easier. So just go here. And then you can let's grab the minified version. And then in our blog layout, we can import that in our style right here. So we can do import. It's at import, I think. Yeah. And let's do that. And what else? We want to add this. So let's grab this CSS. Let's put it in this style section. So let's put it down here. And then we want to make sure, just indent that. We want to make sure to wrap it in a Markdown body class. So everything we want Markdown, everywhere where we want Markdown, we want to wrap it in Markdown body. Okay, so back to our code. So you can see that it makes use of a slot here. And then it goes to our post template. And in here is where we can add that. So right here, class equals Markdown body. And now, hopefully this is styled. There you go. So there's some nice default styles here. Cool. Okay, now I want to make the blog role dynamic. So before we had this, and we had to add a new blog post manually every time we made a new file. But now, since everything is in our GraphQL, it's a bit more dynamic and we can do it automatically. Okay, so let me just bring back my GraphQL Explorer. It's going to slow down my computer, but just to show you the query that I need, I really need a new computer. Okay. So I just want the one that returns all the posts, and we can use that in our index view. So all post. And then what do we want? Edges for the array, node for the actual item, and then we want the ID, the title, and the path. So ID, title, path. So this should return everything. So like I said earlier, this returns it in reverse chronological order, which is what we want for blog posts. But if you want to change the order, you totally can. You can see that there's a sort by argument here, and you can do title. And this should now be in alphabetical order. So it is, but it's in reverse alphabetical order. So you can change that by doing order ASC. So that's ascending. Now it should be OTHTW, and that is the correct alphabetical order. But we'll just leave it since this is what we want for our blog. Reverse chronological order, and that's the default. So I'm going to grab this query, and I'm going to close this so it's not slowing down my computer. And now let's go back to our code, and let's go to index view. And just like we did in post, we can add this page query. I'm not sure if there's a VS Code extension that colors this and makes the syntax colored. If you know, let me know. Okay, so index, let's put it here. So page query, let's paste that in. And we can name it. We don't have to, but let's just name it posts. And the important thing here is we add a variable here. This is what we can reference it by. So we can reference what we need by this posts variable. And now this is manual, but the one underneath is going to be automatic. So I'm going to do UL. Let's put an LI in here. And I'm going to iterate over what we have. So we have that post variable. So v4 post in. To grab that, we can just do page.posts.edges. Like I said, edges is the actual collection coming back, or the array. And I grab the ID, so I grab the ID so I can use it as a key. And then we can do a glink to equals post.node.path. And then in here, we can just do post.node.title. Okay, let's see if this works. We should have two lists now. There we go. So this is the original one, and this is the new one. And this should work. There we go. Cool. Let's just add some H2s here to separate them. Manual. And this is automatic. Say blog roll. Is it one word? I don't know. Blog roll. Okay, cool. So just to prove to you that it's automatic, let me add one more in here. Let me just duplicate this. Let's say blog post 4. I should have just did multiple cursors, but oh well. 4. And now, there you go. There it is. Awesome. Okay, just to drill this into your head, I'm going to do one more example where we grab data from an external source and then use that in our GraphQL central data store. So again, you can use this using plugins. There are several plugins and it's growing by the week. Or you can just do it manually and grab it from any external API, which is what we'll do here. So if you go into the docs, I think there's a section here for server. Yeah, server API, I think. And this only runs once when you build your project. So the data we get from an external source, in this case, I'm going to use the Reddit API. It's not going to be dynamic every time you reload the page. It's just going to grab it at the time of building the project. So keep that in mind. So the first thing I'm going to do is install Axios because that's what we're going to use. Let me just stop this. Okay, so let's run my server again. And now if you go back into the docs, if you scroll all the way down, actually no, it's in this data store API docs. Let's go there. And here, I think it's at the bottom here. So yeah, this is what I'm going to copy and change up. So let's put this into our server file. So down here, Gridsome server. And I'm just going to paste everything in here. So we're requiring an Axios to make HTTP calls. And now we're going to get in some data from an external API. So you can use any API you want. In this case, I'm going to use the Reddit API because I've done that several times on my channel. If you're not familiar, just go to any subreddit. In our case, we're going to go to aw and add JSON to the end. And then you'll get the raw JSON coming back. We can make use of that. So www.reddit.com/r/aw.json. And we also have to add this query string to make it work properly. So that's being saved in this variable. And this needs a comma. And this is doing the same thing as here. When we want to add a new type to our GraphQL data store, in this case, it was posts. And in this case, I want to call it a Reddit post. And the route, in this case, it was blog ID or blog and then the file name. In this case, I want it to be Reddit and then let's just say the ID. Okay. So this just makes a type. Now we have to populate this type with actual data. So as you can see, this is iterating over the data coming back from the Reddit API. So I think by default, it loads 25 posts. So this will add 25 posts to this GraphQL type. So ID, title, and path. I think the only one that's required is a title. And for any custom fields you want, and in our case we do. Sorry, I'm going a bit quick here just because I don't want this video to be too long. And I've already worked with the Reddit API several times in previous videos. But just look at the JSON coming back, this, and you'll get a better understanding of what I'm doing, or at least for the Reddit API part. So yeah, we have to populate types, and the only one that's required is title, but I'm going to add the ID and the path as well. And custom fields, I want a thumbnail. Okay, one thing before we continue. This data has to be an actual array, but that is not the array I want to iterate over after I destructure it here. The array I want to iterate over is, again, just look at the data coming back. It's going to be data.data.children. So if you look here, data is the one coming back, data again, and children is the array, you can see here. Or you can actually destructure it some more using nested destructuring, but I actually think that's a bit messy, and I think this is a bit cleaner. Okay, so thumbnail. Okay, let's do this first. So this is going to be post.data. No, don't change the thing I'm typing VS Code. So post data ID is going to be post data title. This is going to be path. Like I said above, I want it to be /reddit/ post.data.id. And the custom fields I want is post.data.thumbnail. And let's call it image or img. Post data preview images. First one, source URL. Okay. So now if I save that, and I'm going to restart my server. Post is not defined. Yes, that should be post right here. Okay. Okay, so now if I did this correctly, all of the Reddit posts should be available in our GraphQL. So let me just comment this out. Again, it's going to slow down my computer. It's time for a new one. And if you look here, there it is. So let's do all Reddit post. And I believe we want edges, node. And this will have, so the title, let's try title. And let's just do title and ID. We can also do the thumbnail, or let's go for the image actually. So there you go. This is the ID, which we'll use in the URL, and this is all of the posts, current posts in Reddit aw.json. Okay, so let me just show you the one where we just query one post, because I'm going to make use of that. Why don't you want to select? Okay. So it's Reddit post, I believe. Yep. And we want a path. And that path is going to be, I think, /Reddit/ID. So let's grab this ID. And it should be Reddit meet Tony. And we can grab whatever we want. So title and the path and the image. Let's work. There we go. Cool. So let's grab this. Let's close this because it's slowing down my computer. And let's make a new template in here. Where's my templates? Here. Let's call it Reddit post.view. You know what? I'm just going to paste it in to save time. This video is getting quite long. I don't need this. Don't need this. Okay, so we're just extending from the default layout, and we are showing what we get back from this query, which is what I just showed you, the post for this specific Reddit post. And the path is coming in from the URL. And we're changing the title as well. So if I save this, and if we go to a page, so it was /Reddit/ID, and I think I have the ID in my clipboard. Okay, I think that was it. See if this works. Okay, there we go. and there is a huge image, and you can set the max width on it, but that shows you it works. Cool. And now just want to quickly add what we did here. So back to index view. All we have to do is add a query that grabs all the Reddit posts instead of just the normal posts. And we can totally do that. But now we have posts here, and we just want to add a new one called Reddit posts. I'm just going to paste that in to save some time. And this is the new variable available to us. And it's getting what we need here. And then now, let's just add the same thing we did here. Let's put it underneath this automatic blog roll. I already have it copied. And I'm just going to paste it in. And it's exactly the same thing as we did up here. Iterating over this new variable we just got from the GraphQL store. And that should show all of the Reddit posts. And there we go. And as we click on them, if we did this correctly, it works. Awesome. So I hope you have a better idea of how powerful the GraphQL data store can be. Again, this is not going to be dynamic, meaning if you refresh this, new data is not going to come in. It only pulls it at the time of building the project. So you can still make it sort of dynamic if you build like once a day or something. And there's also a way so that you can actually have this as a dynamic view component. So it does update every time you refresh it. But at that point, you probably want to be making a traditional dynamic web app instead of a static site. And yeah, you can also add the thumbnail here, but I'm not going to do that. Okay, let's quickly deploy this onto Netlify. So let me stop this, and I think I have to make it a Git repo. Okay, git add, example complete, and I'm going to use the GitHub CLI, so hub create, and then git push origin master. And the command to build it instead of Gridsome develop for development is just Gridsome build. I can do that locally, but you'll see it in action when I actually put it on a server. So let me just log in. Okay, so let's have a new site for Git, GitHub. And I'm going to look for Gridsome. And it's this one. As you can see, I tried it out already for my example project. And the build command is Gridsome build, and the published directory is dist. And that should be it. This should build in a minute or so.
A few moments later.
And now we can visit it, and this hopefully should work, and it does. So here is our different pages. I forgot to take this extra theme out, but that's okay. And we have our manual blog roll, which just uses HTML, and that still works. And we have our automatic blog roll, which makes use of the file system and Markdown, and that works. And we have our Reddit API, which pulls from the Reddit API. Awesome. One more thing I want to show you is this Gridsome starter blog, which was just released a few days ago. And it's an example blog, which is pretty much what we built here, but more polished and more features. But if you go here, here's the demo URL. And it's very nice. As you can see, it has a few blogs. And it also has support for tags. If you click on it, there it is. And there's also this nice feature where you click on it and there's dark mode. But yeah, take a look at that and you'll see a lot of the things we learned in this video. So there you have it, guys. We've managed to take a look at the basics of Gridsome to build our static site. Definitely a really cool project, which has a ton of potential to become the go-to static site generator in Vue, just like how Gatsby is in React. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one. Okay, thanks. Bye.